The slap echoed through the silent restaurant. Everyone froze. I had just hit the most powerful woman in the city, a woman who could destroy lives with one phone call. My hand was still shaking, but I didn't regret it. You want to know why? Let me tell you the real story. Before I reveal what really happened that night, hit that subscribe button because this story has twists you won't see coming. Drop a like if you've ever been pushed to your breaking point. Now let me take you back to where it all began. And trust me, it's darker than you think. My name is Sophia, and I'm 22 years old. I work as a waitress at the Blue Pearl, one of those upscale restaurants where the cheapest appetizer costs more than my weekly groceries, the kind of place where crystal chandeliers hang from the ceiling and soft piano music floats through the air, while people in designer clothes discuss business deals over wine that costs $300 a bottle. But I'm not there for the ambiance or the fancy food. I'm there because I need every single dollar I can earn. You see, my life isn't like those customers who walk through our doors every night. My life is about survival. 3 years ago, my father walked out on us, just packed his bags one Tuesday morning and disappeared, leaving behind a mountain of debt and 3 people who depended on him: my mother, my 15-year-old brother Carlos, and me. I was 19, just starting community college, dreaming about becoming a teacher someday. Those dreams got put on hold real fast. My mother, the strongest woman I've ever known, tried to hold everything together. She worked 2 jobs, cleaned houses during the day and office buildings at night, but life had other plans. 6 months ago, she collapsed while scrubbing someone's kitchen floor. The diagnosis came swift and brutal: stage 3 cancer. The doctors gave her maybe a year if she was lucky, less if we couldn't afford the treatment she needed. That's when I dropped out of college and picked up every shift I could get at the Blue Pearl. The tips were good, better than anywhere else in the city. I worked doubles, sometimes triples, sleeping 4 hours a night if I was lucky. Every penny went to hospital bills, medications, keeping our small apartment, and making sure Carlos stayed in school and out of trouble. But Carlos was struggling too, a 15-year-old boy watching his mother die and his sister work herself to the bone. It changes you. He started hanging out with the wrong crowd, getting into fights at school. I was losing him too, and I didn't know how to stop it. That's the weight I was carrying when I first met Constance Whitmore. Constance Whitmore. Even her name sounded like money and power. She was in her mid-40s, always dressed in expensive designer suits, cream, navy blue, sometimes silver gray, with jewelry that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. Her hair was always perfect, styled in a way that screamed wealth and sophistication. She owned 3 companies in the city, sat on the boards of 5 others, and had connections that reached into every corner of local politics and business. She was also the cruelest person I had ever encountered. My first real experience with Constance happened about 2 months before everything exploded. I was working the evening shift when she came in with some business associates. Annie, one of the sweetest waitresses at our restaurant, was serving her table. Annie was a single mom, working hard to support her 2 kids. I watched from across the dining room as Constance tasted her coffee and suddenly jerked backward dramatically. Before anyone could react, she picked up the cup and threw the hot coffee directly at Annie. The scalding liquid hit Annie's arm and chest. Annie screamed, tears immediately streaming down her face as the hot coffee soaked through her uniform and burned her skin. The entire restaurant went silent. Everyone stared, and Constance simply dabbed her lips with a napkin and said coldly, "That coffee was far too hot. Perhaps next time you'll be more careful about what you serve me." I ran to help Annie, my heart pounding with rage and disbelief, but our manager, a nervous man named Gerald who was more worried about the restaurant's reputation than his employees, rushed over and apologized profusely to Constance, not to Annie who was crying in pain, to Constance. Annie had to go to the emergency room. She came back the next day with bandages on her arm, and Gerald told her she needed to be more careful. Constance faced no consequences, none, because Constance knew the mayor personally, she knew the restaurant owner, she had power, and she knew how to use it as a weapon. That night, I went home and cried out of sheer frustration, but I couldn't quit. I needed this job. My mother needed me. so I swallowed my anger and came back the next day. Over the following weeks, I watched Constance come in every Friday evening, like clockwork, and every Friday she would choose someone to destroy. It was like a twisted game to her, a way to exercise her power and remind everyone that she was untouchable. One Friday, she accused a waiter named Tony of stealing. Tony was a good guy, supporting his elderly parents, never caused any trouble. Constance claimed a piece of expensive jewelry had gone missing from her purse while she was in the restroom, and Tony had been near her table. She made such a scene, threatened to call the police, demanded that Tony be searched. They found the jewelry in his apron pocket. Tony swore he didn't take it, that someone must have planted it. I believed him. We all did. But Constance insisted, and Gerald fired Tony on the spot to appease her. 2 weeks later, I saw Constance wearing that same piece of jewelry. She had never lost it at all. She had planted it herself to get Tony fired just because she could. Another waitress named Hannah quit after serving Constance one evening. I never found out exactly what happened, but Hannah left in tears and never came back. Later, I heard that Constance had somehow gotten Hannah's phone number and called her family members, making up lies about Hannah and harassing them until Hannah couldn't take it anymore. This wasn't just a mean customer. This was someone who genuinely enjoyed inflicting pain on others, someone who used her wealth and connections as weapons against people who couldn't fight back. And the worst part? Everyone let her do it. The management, the owner, even other customers. Everyone just looked away because confronting Constance Whitmore meant risking everything. I hated her. I hated coming to work on Fridays. I hated the way my stomach twisted into knots whenever I saw her walk through the door, but I kept my head down and did my job because I had no choice. Then everything changed on a Friday evening in late September. My mother's condition had worsened. The doctors were talking about more aggressive treatment that our insurance barely covered and that would cost thousands of dollars we didn't have. Carlos had just been suspended from school for 3 days for fighting. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, barely holding myself together. I was working the evening shift, and of course, Constance was there. I tried to stay away from her section, but we were short-staffed that night, and Gerald assigned me to cover some tables near hers. I could hear her voice, sharp and condescending, making some comment to her server about the water being the wrong temperature. At one point, I needed to use the restroom. I pushed open the door to the women's room and heard a voice. Constance was standing near the sinks, her phone pressed to her ear, her back to me. She didn't notice me come in. "Yes, I'm talking about that waitress," she was saying, her tone casual and cold. "Sophia Martinez. The one with the mother at St. Mary's Hospital." My blood turned to ice. I froze in the doorway, hidden partially by a decorative partition. Constance continued, "Stage 3 cancer, very sad, only a few months left from what I understand. I had someone look into her background. Single mother, deadbeat father, troubled younger brother, the whole tragic story." She laughed. Actually laughed. "It might be useful leverage," she said. "These desperate types are easy to control when you know their pressure points. I'm thinking of hiring her for my house, actually. Having someone that desperate means they'll put up with anything, and I need a new housekeeper." I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. This woman had investigated me. She knew about my mother's illness, about my family, about everything, and she was planning to use it against me. Constance hung up the phone and turned around, finally noticing me standing there. For a moment, our eyes met. She didn't look surprised or embarrassed. Instead, she smiled, a cold, calculating smile, and walked past me out of the restroom without saying a word. I stood there for a long moment, my reflection staring back at me from the mirror. My eyes were red-rimmed from lack of sleep, my face pale and thin. I looked as exhausted as I felt. And suddenly, I was angry. Not just frustrated or upset, truly, deeply angry. This woman didn't just enjoy being cruel. She actively hunted for vulnerabilities in people's lives so she could exploit them. She had researched my dying mother like she was gathering intelligence for a business deal, and she thought I would just take it because I was desperate. I walked back out into the dining room, my heart pounding. Constance was at her usual table, this time with two business partners. She had ordered champagne and was clearly celebrating something. Her voice carried across the restaurant, loud and performative. Throughout the evening, she was worse than I'd ever seen her. She sent back her appetizer twice, claiming it was cold even though I watched the kitchen prepare it fresh both times. She snapped her fingers at servers like we were dogs. She made loud comments about the help these days and how you just can't find decent service anymore. But the worst part was that she kept looking at me. Every time I walked past her table, even though I wasn't assigned to her section, she would make some comment loud enough for me to hear. Comments about how some people would do anything for money, how desperate times made people pathetic, how poverty was really just a sign of personal failure. She knew I'd heard her in the bathroom, she knew I knew, and she was enjoying it. My breaking point came when I was carrying a tray of drinks past her table. I wasn't even serving her, just walking by. Constance suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist, making me stop. The glasses on my tray rattled dangerously. "You," she said, looking up at me with those cold eyes. "What's your name again?" "Sophia, ma'am," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sophia," she repeated, drawing out my name like it tasted bad in her mouth. "Tell me, Sophia, how is your mother doing?" Still at St. Mary's Hospital, correct? The dining room seemed to tilt around me. She was doing this on purpose, in front of everyone. She's fine, ma'am," I managed to say. "Oh, I doubt that," Constance said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Stage 3 cancer is rarely fine. And the charity ward at St. Mary's, well, I'm sure they're doing their best with limited resources. Must be terribly hard on you working here, watching your mother die slowly because you can't afford proper treatment." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Everyone around us had gone quiet, listening. One of Constance's business partners looked uncomfortable. "Constance, maybe we should—" But she ignored him, still staring at me. "I looked you up, you know. Your whole pathetic little story. Abandoned by your father, what, 3 years ago? He left you with all his debts, didn't he? And your brother, what's his name, Carlos? 15 years old and already in trouble with the law. Fighting. Suspension from school. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?" Her partners were both looking down at their plates now, embarrassed but silent. Constance leaned back in her chair, swirling her champagne. "It must be exhausting, Sophia, trying to hold together a family that's falling apart. Your mother dying, your brother becoming a criminal, and you—" She looked me up and down with obvious disdain. "You serving tables and pretending you're going to somehow save everyone. It's almost admirable in its futility." Something inside me snapped. I don't remember making the decision. One moment I was standing there, frozen, humiliated with tears burning in my eyes. The next moment my hand was moving, fast and hard. The slap connected of Constance's face with a sound that seemed to crack through the entire restaurant like a gunshot. Crack! Her head jerked to the side. Her champagne glass fell from her hand and shattered on the floor. The entire dining room went absolutely silent. Not a fork moved. Not a breath was taken. Constance slowly turned her head back to face me, her hand moving to her cheek. A bright red mark was already forming across her cream-colored skin. Her eyes were wide with shock, genuine shock. I don't think anyone had ever hit Constance Whitmore in her entire privileged life. My hand was still raised, trembling. My tray had fallen to the floor, drinks and broken glass everywhere. I was shaking from head to toe, adrenaline flooding my system. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then Constance found her voice. You hit me!" she shrieked, standing up so fast her chair fell backward. "You assaulted me! Everyone saw it! You're going to jail!" She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking with rage. "I'm calling the police right now. You're finished. You'll go to prison for this. Your mother will die alone while you rot in a cell." Reality crashed over me. What had I done? I had just assaulted someone. Not just someone, one of the most powerful people in the city. Someone with lawyers and connections and money, someone who could destroy me. Gerald came running over, his face pale with panic. "Ms. Whitmore, please, I'm so sorry. We'll handle this immediately." "Handle it?" Constance screamed. "She attacked me. I want her arrested. Now." Other diners were pulling out their phones. Some were filming, others were already calling 911. Constance's business partners were standing up, trying to calm her down, but she shoved them away. "I will destroy you," Constance hissed at me, her face twisted with rage. "I will destroy your entire pathetic family. Your mother will be thrown out of that hospital. Your brother will end up in juvenile detention. And you'll spend years in prison. Do you understand me? Years." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I had just ruined everything. My mother, Carlos, our whole life, everything I'd been fighting for, gone in one moment of losing control. Then a voice cut through the chaos. "Actually, ma'am, I wouldn't make those threats if I were you." An older man in an expensive navy blue suit stood up from a corner table. He was maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded immediate attention. He held up his phone. "I've been recording everything that happened here tonight," he said calmly, "including your harassment of this young woman, including your admission that you illegally investigated her private life and her family, including your threats about her sick mother and your intention to use that information as leverage against her." Constance's face went from red to pale in an instant. The man walked closer, his voice steady and professional. "My name is Benjamin Harper. I'm an attorney. And what you did here tonight, Ms. Whitmore, constitutes harassment, potentially stalking, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The physical response," he gestured to me, "while regrettable, was provoked by your extreme emotional abuse and public humiliation of this young woman." "I don't care who you are," Constance spat, but her voice was less certain now. "She hit me." "That's assault." "It is," the attorney agreed, "and she'll face consequences for that, but so will you. You see, I've been dining here every Friday for the past month. I've watched you abuse staff members, throw hot coffee at a waitress, falsely accuse someone of theft, and create a hostile environment week after week. I've documented all of it." He looked around the restaurant. "And I'm certain many of these other witnesses would be happy to testify about your pattern of behavior." Several people nodded. One man spoke up. "I saw everything." The lady was horrible to her, absolutely horrible. An elderly woman added, "I've been coming here for years. I've seen this woman terrorize the staff over and over. Someone needed to stand up to her." Then one of Constance's business partners, a woman in her 30s with short brown hair, stepped forward. Her face was set with determination. "I can't stay quiet anymore," she said. "Constance, you need serious help." Constance spun to face her. "Shut up, Lauren." "Right now." But Lauren didn't stop. She looked at the gathered crowd, at me, at the attorney. "I've worked with Constance for 3 years. I've watched her behavior get worse and worse. She wasn't always like this, but after her divorce last year, after she lost custody of her 2 children because of her anger issues, she became cruel. She takes her pain out on everyone around her." "I said shut up," Constance screamed. "No," Lauren said firmly. "I've been documenting your behavior for months. The company board is already investigating you for harassment complaints. You've driven away 15 employees in the past year alone. You've created a toxic work environment, and I've kept records of all of it." Constance looked like she'd been slapped again. "You betrayed me?" "You betrayed yourself," Lauren said sadly. "You need help, Constance. Professional help. This isn't who you used to be." The other business partner, an older man, nodded. "She's right." "Constance, you're spiraling. We've all been worried about you, but you push everyone away." I found my voice finally, tears streaming down my face. My whole body was shaking, but I needed to say this. "I'm sorry I hit you," I said, my voice breaking. "I was wrong. Violence is never the answer. I know that. But you..." I looked at Constance, who was standing there surrounded by people turning against her. "You investigated my dying mother, so you could use it against me?" You made jokes about her being in a charity ward? She has 3 months to live. Maybe less. 3 months. And you thought that was funny? My voice grew stronger even as tears continued falling. What kind of person does that? What happened to you that made you so cruel? I'm 22 years old. I work double shifts every single day to afford my mother's medication. I haven't slept a full night in 6 months. My brother is falling apart, and you thought it would be entertaining to publicly humiliate me about it. The restaurant was completely silent now except for my voice. I lost control, I continued. I shouldn't have hit you. But you've been destroying people for months and nobody stopped you. Because you have money and power, and we're just servers and waiters and desperate people trying to survive. Well, I'm done being afraid of you. Within minutes, the police arrived. 2 officers walked in, taking in the scene, the broken glass, the crowd of witnesses, Constance with her red face, me standing there trembling. They separated us, taking statements. The attorney, Benjamin Harper, showed them his recording. Lauren offered to provide documentation of Constance's pattern of behavior. Multiple witnesses came forward to describe what they'd seen. I told the truth. I had hit her. I didn't deny it. One of the officers, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, took me aside. Listen, she said quietly. Technically, yes, you committed assault. But given the circumstances, the extreme provocation, the harassment, the emotional distress, I don't think charges would stick. The district attorney would probably decline to prosecute. She glanced over at Constance, who was arguing loudly with the other officer. Between you and me, someone should have stood up to her a long time ago. Not with violence, but I understand why you broke. The officers gave us both warnings. Constance was told that if she wanted to press charges against me, she'd have to accept that she would likely face civil suits for harassment and potentially criminal charges for stalking. The evidence against her was substantial. Gerald, my manager, approached nervously. Ms. Whitmore, I'm afraid I have to inform you that you're no longer welcome at this establishment. We can't have... You're banning me? Constance was incredulous. After she attacked me? Yes, ma'am, Gerald said, and for the first time I heard strength in his voice. We should have done it months ago. I'm sorry it took this long. As the police were preparing to leave, Constance suddenly crumpled. Not physically, but emotionally. She sat down heavily in a chair, her perfect posture collapsing. And then she started to cry. Not angry tears, deep, wrenching sobs. Everyone fell silent again, unsure what to do. My daughter, Constance said through her tears, her voice broken. My daughter has cancer too, the same kind as your mother. I felt my anger waver, confusion replacing it. Constance looked up at me, mascara running down her face. She's 16. She was diagnosed 8 months ago, and she won't speak to me. She refuses to see me because I was such a terrible mother. Because I was always working, always angry, always controlling. When my husband left and took the kids, she chose to stay with him. She told the judge she was afraid of me. She wiped her face with shaking hands. When I found out she was sick, I tried to see her. I wanted to help, but she won't let me near her. She said she'd rather face cancer alone than let me back into her life. Lauren, her business partner, knelt beside her. Constance, you need to talk to someone, a therapist. This anger isn't helping you or anyone else. I know, Constance whispered. I see you with your mother, Sophia. I see how she still loves you despite everything. And I'm jealous. My own daughter is dying and she won't even let me hold her hand. So I became cruel to everyone else because I couldn't stand seeing what I'd lost. I didn't know what to say. Part of me still hated her for what she'd done, but part of me recognized that pain in her voice. We were both watching someone we loved dying. The difference was, I still had my mother's love. She had nothing. The story spread through the city like wildfire. The attorney Benjamin Harper turned out to be semi-famous. He'd won several high-profile cases. His recording ended up on the news. Not all of it, thankfully, but enough that people knew what had happened. The Blue Pearl got flooded with support. People left reviews praising Gerald for finally banning Constance. My coworkers treated me like some kind of hero, even though I didn't feel like one. I felt like someone who had lost control at the worst possible moment and somehow, miraculously, hadn't had her life completely destroyed. I expected to be fired, but Gerald surprised me. "You stood up for all of us," he said. "You shouldn't have hit her, but I understand, and you're not losing your job over this." 2 weeks after that night, I came home from a morning shift to find a thick envelope on our apartment doorstep. No return address. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a handwritten note. The note read, "Sophia, this won't fix what I did. It won't excuse my behavior, but maybe it can save what matters most. I'm getting help, real help. I've started therapy, and I'm trying to rebuild a relationship with my daughter, even if it's just through letters right now. You had the courage to stand up to me. I hope someday I can have the courage to be the kind of person who deserves forgiveness. Use this for your mother's treatment. You deserve to have more time with her. CW." I stood there holding that check, tears streaming down my face. $50,000. It would cover months of treatment, medications, maybe even experimental therapies the doctors had mentioned, but that we could never afford. My mother was sitting on the couch, wrapped in blankets despite the warm weather. She'd gotten so thin, so fragile, but she was still here, still smiling when I walked in the door, still asking about my day. "Mama," I said, walking over to her, "something amazing just happened. That was 3 months ago. My mother's condition has stabilized. The new treatment is working better than the doctors expected. She might have more than the 3 months they originally predicted. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year. Every day is a gift now. Carlos is doing better too. After seeing how close we came to losing everything, he cleaned up his act. He's back in school, staying out of trouble. He even got a part-time job to help with expenses. I still work at the Blue Pearl. I'm still exhausted most days, but something changed in me that night. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself even when you're terrified of the consequences. The slap was wrong. I won't defend that. Violence is never the answer. But that moment taught me that I won't be crushed by people who think their power makes them untouchable. I deserve respect, my mother deserves dignity, and no amount of money or influence gives someone the right to take that away. I haven't seen Constance since that night, but I heard through Lauren that she's actually following through with therapy. She's been slowly, carefully trying to rebuild a relationship with her daughter through letters and supervised visits. From what I understand, her daughter is responding. Slowly, cautiously, but it's something. I hope she makes it. Not for my sake, but for her daughter's. Because I understand now that Constance wasn't just evil. She was broken. Hurt people, as they say. And sometimes the cruelest person in the room is the one suffering the most inside. That doesn't excuse what she did. It doesn't erase the pain she caused me and everyone else she targeted. But it makes her human, and humans can change if they choose to. As for me, I'm still fighting, still working, still hoping. My mother is sitting on the couch right now, watching her favorite show. Carlos is doing homework at the kitchen table, and I just got home from my shift, tired but grateful. We're not perfect. Our life is still hard, but we have each other, and that's more than Constance had with all her money and power. Sometimes the people who seem the most powerful are actually the most broken, and sometimes all it takes is one moment, one shocking, regrettable, transformative moment to reveal the truth about who we all really are. I'm Sophia, I'm a waitress, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, and I'm someone who learned that standing up for yourself, even imperfectly, is better than being crushed in silence. That's my story. That's what really happened the night I slapped Constance Whitmore. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these real-life lessons. Drop a comment telling me about a time you stood up for yourself or witnessed someone else's courage. Have you ever dealt with a difficult person who pushed you too far? Share your story below. I read every comment. And don't forget to subscribe because I share stories like this every week about real people, real struggles, and real growth. Remember, you are worthy of respect, no matter what job you do or where you are in life. Never let anyone make you feel small. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.